Imagine a world with no cold calling. A world where companies don't sell your data to other companies who want to pester you. At G4 Claims, we don't cold call and we don't buy a single lead from data companies. Oh, and if you're due any compensation from your car accident, you pay nothing to us at all. For full accident management support, including motor replacement, repairs and personal injury compensation claims, just search G4 Claims today. For help the way you want it.
Hi and welcome to this week's episode of the DW podcast. I am joined by Ross Geddes of Finnieston Clothing. How you doing, Ross?
How you doing, mate? Thank you very much for having me on.
No worries.
It's an honour. You've had some great guests over the years. I saw you'd had Marco Negri following in his footsteps. Like that.
Yeah. It's almost like not wanting to split that Glasgow divide. I'll need to get a Celtic player or an ex-Celtic player on next. But no, Marco was lovely. We caught up with him last year. I was over in Italy for a while recording some podcasts, and he had us round to his house, and out on the balcony just outside Bologna, and his wife was making sure that we had all Italian food there and nice wee coffee.
That's amazing.
They were a lovely family. Really, really nice to catch up with.
It's class.
So you're following good footsteps, I have to say. How are you getting on? Tell us a wee bit about yourself, because the reason I wanted to get you on the podcast is, as many will know that have watched or listened to this before, I believe that I like to champion Scottish brands, especially people that, seem like they've got a story behind them and they're putting all their time and effort and, desire into this. And that, from the outside looking in, looks like exactly the story we finished.
Yeah, I've kind of been in this industry in a way my entire life. How I kind of ended up where I am now is that I was originally kind of born in Glasgow. I lived in the south side of Glasgow, and my mum and dad, when I was very first born, they started going around Scotland with a caravan and a tent, and basically showing clothing. And basically selling clothes from a tent, really. So first year of my life, I slept in a drawer of a caravan. So that's what, that's my caravan card. I've used that,
that's amazing.
It's kind of like, so that's I've kind of travelled around with them for like a year, and then eventually my mum and dad are very hard-working people, and eventually they managed to get a wee small shop in Callendar. So they had a wee shop in Callendar. Then over the years, they've just worked their arse off and just got to that point where they've had, now they've got a company called CCW Clothing. So they've got a shop in Callendar, they've got a shop in St Andrews and a shop on Byres Road in Glasgow. So over the years, ever since I was kind of old enough to pretty much, wash a window or sort size cubes into the appropriate boxes and organise clothing hangers, I've just been in the shops. So, and I kind of, as a boy and young guy, kind of worked there most of my life, really. And then I kind of had that period of where I was just like, right, I don't want to work in the family business, kind of scattered off. I went away and lived in France for a while, Canada, Australia. I probably lived for about 8 years. That's why my accent's so weird, because it's like a mixture of, it's just like, it's a mixture of kind of Central Belt, Glasgow, and living abroad as well. Once you go over there, it's kind of, you realise you really need to actually speak properly for people to be able to understand you.
That's brilliant. So Callendar, how did the shop in Callendar come about? Because what a lovely wee town and a beautiful part of the country.
Yeah, I know, it's such a, I think it was just a case of my mum and dad were just looking for somewhere that's quite touristy, because their business has changed so much over the years. When they first started CCW Clothing, they were doing, it was like country wear. So it was like shooting, fishing, all that kind of, barber, which they still do barber now, because now it's like a big fashion brand. But, kind of a very, a bit more of a country kind of aspect to it. And they felt like, Callendar was obviously missing a clothing store at that time. And it's just that, it's that kind of gateway to the kind of Highlands and the Trossachs and stuff like that as well, where you do get a lot of kind of passing trade. So, as I said, it was just like they've kind of, now they're at that stage where they've kind of moved to a larger unit in Callendar, got a big shop there with a restaurant up above it, and another couple of shops in and one in St Andrews, and as I said, one on Byres Road. So And it was probably about 5 years ago that I was kind of, at that point when I came home from, basically just working abroad, really. I'd like to say I was travelling, but I was kind of I literally rocked up to somewhere and just worked there for a year. And kind of, I was just kind of bumming about Glasgow. I was working in hospitality at the time, and they were kind of just like, they were actually quite close to selling their business. And then they kind of went to my sister and I, my sister was just like, I'll happily, go into the family business. And then they were like, I took a bit more persuasion, really.
Okay.
I've always loved clothing. I've always loved fashion, but I've always been quite hesitant about working with your family. Do you know?
I understand that. It's almost like, do you want to go into business with your friends and family? Because if you fall out with them, there's so much more to it, isn't there?
And it's so hard. Like, and that's the thing, is I even struggle with it now. It's just like, you turn up to your family's house and you're having dinner, you end up talking about work.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? You're all involved in it. And there's no escape. Do you know what I mean? And it's actually just like, sometimes I've just lost the rag. You know what I mean? I actually had to stop living with my parents when I came. Do you know what I mean? Because I was living with them for a while, and it was actually just like, you're coming down hungover on a Sunday morning, and your dad's wanting to ask you stuff about work, and you're just like, piss off.
It's funny though, because I think that people go to work and they come home and they probably moan to their families or their partners about their work. But if you're working with your family or your partner, you can't have that same dynamic.
Yeah, it's quite hard when, it's just like you're really struggling with your work, and you're struggling with, for example, your mum and dad. And it's just like, I've got nobody to talk to about this. Because it's just literally just like, they're the issue. No, it has its pros and cons of working in a family business. Do you know what I mean? Sometimes it's extremely rewarding, sometimes it's stressful, but now I'm at that stage where I wouldn't probably change it for the world, really, do you know? And it was so, I think, coming into the family business, my sister and I, we opened up the shop on Byers Road, and we kind of said, okay, let's try and grow the business, which was CCW Clothing. And we're a family independent clothing business, very much kind of, very much customer service, speaking to people and all that kind of stuff. But kind of going into the really kind of, trying to push retail forward, you kind of got to that feeling a little bit where, I've got all these great brands in this shop now, but the kind of retail landscape in the high street's changing quite a lot.
Yeah.
And you see that in a lot of, city centres struggling and stuff like that as well, where the issue with CCW is, and it's not a major issue, we still do fine, but the clothing that we do in CCW, you can get anywhere.
Sure.
And that's one of the issues, is that, people can come in and try a Patagonia jacket on for £300. They'll go, I'll maybe have a think about it, but what they're doing is they're going home and trying to find it cheaper online.
Yeah, it's a shame, isn't it? Because what people don't take into consideration, and it's a bit of a bugbear of mine, is they might get it cheaper online, but they're not supporting an independent business. It's usually a large corporate organisation there's the reason it's cheaper is because they've got stores all over the world.
Yeah, exactly. And the thing is, there's people just selling from a warehouse. They don't have staff overheads, and it can be really, really painful sometimes. You know what I mean? You're sitting in the shop and some guy comes up to you and goes, well, I can get it for that price online. And I'm like, right, I respect you for asking, for one, but will you meet me in the middle? Do you know what I mean? It could be the case of like £20, and it's literally just like, I'm just going to go online and get it. And you're just like, I hate you.
Yeah, totally.
You know what I mean? And these are probably the same people that moan about the high street being derelict. Do you know what I mean? And that's where it was.
That's 22, Ross, isn't it? Because I suppose, if people are struggling and money's tight, I get why they would go for the cheaper option, why they'd want to save that money. But I think often, and maybe this is me being unfair and jumping to conclusions, but I think often as well, it's sometimes people who've got the money there. If they're buying a £300 jacket, it's usually, if it's an extra tenner, listen, as you said, think about the overheads and the humans behind this here.
Yeah, exactly. So it was kind of, and that's the thing, is I kind of got really frustrated with the kind of retail landscape of things. And, I kind of done a digital marketing diploma, and I'm like, right, okay, I'm going to really try and work out how to do online better. But the problem with online is that, with our shops for CCW, and I know I'm talking about a different business now, I'm not even talking about Finnieston.
It ties into the story, doesn't it?
Yeah. And I suppose, but it was kind of just like, the online landscape is the only way you're going to really do large numbers online is if you're having it at the same price as everybody else is selling online. And there's a massive price war with branded marketplaces online where you're fighting against Amazon, you're fighting against larger retailers, online retailers that can afford to bring core products in and discount them straight away. So you're never really going to compete with that. And so you almost get that little bit of a feeling that you're in a bit of a slow sinking ship, really, where online's only it's not going anywhere. It's only people are picking, I think price is obviously one thing, but I think convenience is another thing as well, where I think some people are for a shop. It's even at a point where they're just lazy, where they can't be arsed carrying it home.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's what it comes down to. It's convenient.
It's a popping into the city centre and, they could buy something and go to the pub after it, or they could get it online and go to the pub and not worry about that bag that they're carrying about.
Yeah, exactly. And that's where it's just like, there is price to a certain of that. So that's where, as humans, we are just going to strive towards basically wanting things quicker, wanting things more convenient. So that's where I kind of was just like, right, I can't really, how do I grow this business? And it was really a case of, and it was quite my mum and dad were saying, I think we need to have our own brand. And so that's where I took a step back from CCW, and kind of the last 3 years I've been working on doing Finnieston Clothing, which we launched in the winter of actually 2018. And it's been an absolute mental learning curve over the last kind of few years of, obviously changing your mindset from being a retail director to a brand owner as well. It's a different thought process, and I've always been quite a nomadic person, and and this is the first time in my life that I had to actually really focus on something, and the accountability was quite scary to begin with. Do you know what I mean? Where, because before that I'd kind of just travelled around and never really been in a job that I was just like, I'd had a lot of responsibility. And then all of a sudden we're starting to spend quite big money on trying to bring a brand to light. And that was something that I definitely struggled with to begin with, was and that was where it was just like, you realise that you're kind of, your social structures had to change, you know what I mean? Going out all weekend and coming in on a Monday and having to make big decisions, you're kind of like, I kind of had to screw the nut a little bit as well. So, but it was, it's been an interesting journey, because, the reason Finnieston, when it first launched, doesn't really look like it does now.
Okay.
And the reason for that was, we get to that point with CCW again, where finally my parents are like, oh my God, we have an exclusive product, which is in our shop. It's fantastic. And there was definitely a pushing and pulling between the family, where they wanted a brand to sell within CCW, and I was trying to create a brand. Okay. And what ended up happening, I would say, with the first season is that, I probably, the brand probably looked like a Scottish version of Barber.
Okay.
Which there's nothing wrong with that, but I would say it just lacked a little bit of identity. In the first season, I sourced every single zip, button, stud, material, put it all together myself. It just about killed me. And basically just and launched in 2018. The issue was the factory that I went with in the UK had they basically took us on and said, yep, we'll make all your stuff. But the problem was, I think some larger orders came into the factory. So what ended up happening with Finnieston its first season is it got pushed back to the end. And, because I'm sitting there, I think they'd said to me, like, yeah, we'll deliver your jackets to you, halfway through September. 13th of September, I even remember the date.
It's ingrained in your mind.
Yeah. And I'm thinking, right, this is the Monday before the 13th of September, and I'm sitting going to these people, right, okay, we still good for this Friday? And they were letting go, got an email back just saying, it'll be another month. And it's literally just like, September's still late for an outerwear clothing brand. And so having to deal with that. And so I ended up basically launching Finnieston its first season pretty much the start of November. So you
very
get all
close to Christmas, isn't it? And you speak to anybody that works in the kind of retail landscape and fashion, is that November's just a hellhole for discounting.
Do you know what I mean? Because Black Friday's about. So you're trying to launch this premium brand, you know, during November. Nobody's heard of you before. Yeah, I would say it was interesting because, you know, obviously, I think when you're so involved in a project, you're obsessed about it and you think everybody else should be obsessed about it. You know, and you're sitting there and you're doing all your videos on Facebook, Instagram, and you're thinking, God's sake, that's had over 250,000 views. I've got this nailed. And then
You
I
feel like you
remember
start getting ahead of yourself?
I think my expectations were, I don't know, I was way ahead of what I thought where I was really. The successes the first season was that, you know, I used all the materials were fantastic materials. I used great manufacturers in the UK, although they were late. It's a bit of a pain in the arse. But, you know, I did a great collaboration with a Scottish artist called James Klinger, who's done lots of kind of murals about the city. All my knitwear, all my accessory was all made in Scotland. So there's just like so many great talking points there about what I did. And it was just like, I look back on it now and go, that was actually a really, really good success. For the knowledge that you had to go in and do what you did was brilliant. But at that time, I'm thinking, what the fuck have I done?
It's only in hindsight that you look back and think, aye, that was a success, aye.
I actually did a really good job. And yeah, so I remember, like, you know, as I said, I launched on the Friday night, and you know, coming in the next day thinking that I was going to break the internet. Do you know what I mean? I'm coming in, standing with my goalie gloves next to the printer, waiting for all the orders to fly out. So it was kind of, I kind of got to. It's I think, and this is where it's just like, if you speak to, I know we're talking about, you know, for example, Keston Hare or 40, you know, other great Scottish brands, is that if you want to do a brand properly, there's no quick way about it, you know. And I think it takes a long time for your customers to understand who you are, understand the quality of the garments, and and so that was the kind of first season that we launched with some jackets, and it was gents and ladies to begin with, and then we ended up kind of going, right, okay, we've kind of built this ship now, which was the Finnieston ship, and you're kind of just like, which way do we take this? And that's where I was kind of just said to my mum and dad, I was just like, listen, we need to actually make this a proper brand. And that's where it was kind of, I'm obviously originally from Glasgow, and I was just like, what is like Glaswegian heritage? And obviously it's not tartan, it's not tweed, do you know what I mean? It's an industrial city. And I was just like, I really think that there maybe is something here that's not been really spoken about or tapped into as from a clothing brand. And that was where we kind of went down the line of the shipbuilding angle, and we we put that into work over kind of a year and a half, and we're kind of launching the new line at the start of where are we? We're in February, aren't we? So it was this start of 2020 we were supposed to kind of launch the brand, and it was supposed to come out in March, and then obviously COVID happened.
Ross, I read online, I'm sure, that when you were doing your research, you got in touch, or you came across, I don't know how you knew him, a historian called Ian.
Yeah.
And he basically told you, you know, so much about the story, the Clyde shipbuilding industry, you know, and what was happening down there. And when you look at the clothes now, you know, when you look at the products that you've put out, it looks like a lot of it's heavily based on the clothing off the workers at the time.
I'm really, really fortunate when, you know, I started to do a bit of research into this, and my mum and dad basically said, well, we should speak to Ian. And I've actually known Ian since I was a wee boy.
Right, okay.
You know what I mean? So, yeah. I've known him since I was a wee boy. And I just basically phoned Ian up, and I was just like, listen, Ian, this is the way I want to kind of push this brand, and I'm really interested in it. And I was just like, who's the best person to speak to? And he was just like, me, son. And then, I basically spent almost the summer in this guy's attic, and we went to his house in Clarkson, and just up in this guy's attic, it's just that this absolute treasure trove of just he's just got so much memorabilia, so many pictures. I wouldn't leave him alone. Do you know what I mean? That's the thing, is it was just like, I actually became an obsession for me. Do you know what I mean? I've been through all of the Mitchell Library, all the books in the Mitchell Library, and it's just like trying to, it kind of engulfed me a little bit, where I was just like, I really do think that there is something here. And seeing, like, obviously the old logos of all the shipping companies and stuff like that as well, I was just like, oh, that's so cool. Do you know what I mean? But I think my struggle with...
What was Ian's involvement then, Ross? Why has he got all this in his attic? Was he...
He's a historian and author of the Clyde side, so he's written lots of books. And he's also quite heavily involved with the Fairfield Museum in Govan. And so he's basically just like, his dad worked in the shipyards, and it's just an obsession for him. And he was just so enthused that obviously someone at my age, at the young age of 35, just was just so interested in it and wanted to. And the thing that he was just wanted to be for, and we've been so cautious about this as well from the start, is that it has to be represented properly, and that, you know, any of the history that we are talking about all marries up. And so he's kind of just been so helpful from that point of view. And he's just he's just an enthusiast, really. So, and that's even led to me going to, you know, chats at the Fairfield at night and stuff like that as well. So, and we're definitely this year looking to try and see what we can do to try and support the Fairfield Museum, because, you know, it's important for us to try and keep the kind of legacy alive. And that's where it was just like, right, how do I build a clothing line around this subject? And that's where it was just like, you know, it's trying to obviously focus on great materials. You know, there's, with Finnieston, the brand of the way it is now, you know, we do T-shirts, we do a selection of outerwear, accessories and stuff like that. When it comes to picking materials for any of the products, it's a case of, right, what's the best we can really get for that? Do you know what I mean? And there's no cutting any corners when it comes to basically try to use good factories and good materials and stuff that's going to build to last, really.
I think it's really interesting that you touch on that as well, because for me, that you often see on Instagram, you know, and on social media, that there's anyone can almost be an entrepreneur and start a t-shirt business nowadays, can't they? You see so many people chucking them together, but I think the things for me that sets the real ones apart is people like yourself, people like you touched on, you know, Harry at 40 there, Kirsten here, who they look at the detail of the quality, you know, they look at how does this tick so many boxes, rather than what's the cheapest t-shirt that I can buy and what's the quickest design that I can chuck on it. You know, I think if you're going to do this, you really have to heavily invest your time and your money into making it a success and actually devoting your life to it.
Yeah. I think it's like, see if you can focus on not selling a product, right, and focus on actually selling an emotion. Do you know what I mean? Where somebody actually gets that feeling when they buy something from you, you know, and they want to walk around with that like a badge of pride. And I think that's where a lot of the high streets are struggling now, is, you know, your larger kind of department stores, is because nobody gets a feeling when they buy from them anymore. Do you know what I mean? And I think the likes of, you know, during the pandemic, and, you know, small little towns out of, you know, city centres have actually done not too bad. Like independents and stuff like that have actually started to flourish, I would say, a bit more, because what's happened is people are wanting to stick to the local areas, and it's probably actually made a little bit more of a conscious shopper, where people are like, you know what, I might not have as much money, but where I'm spending that, I really want to, you know, support something local and stuff like that as well. And that's why, you know, like, we launched the website originally this year. We were support last year. God's sake, I'm getting mixed up in my years here. It's just been one big assault course. Where, you know, we were always supposed to open up the shop in March. We had a shop confirmed, and, you know, a lot of my buying was kind of based around, you know, me having a shop open from March. And then that obviously fell through. And I at the time, I didn't have enough time to get my photography sorted to even get a website up and running during the first lockdown.
So challenging, isn't it?
I know, but literally the first week after we went into lockdown here, my factories went, right, we've made all your stuff.
Take it.
Aye.
Get it off.
Yeah. They obviously got a move on quickly because they saw what was going on. The first time they actually got a move on. And so I actually had to sit there and go, I need to pay these people. Do you know what I mean? Because at the end of the day, they've got workers to pay as well. So, you know, during the first lockdown, I'm sitting there just basically on mountains of stock. And I couldn't even get a website, a photo shoot done during that time. So literally it was just this mad dash of trying to get some kind of a photo shoot done, get the website up and running, and launch, you know, we kind of launched the brand at the kind of end of July, start of August. So, but then obviously it's just like, you know, I'm selling jackets that are in, you know, that kind of between, you know, the start at £220 and go up to £320. The reason that we were so keen on getting a shop is because it's our background. We're good retailers. We know how to do that properly. That's not the hard bit, but it's getting consumers to take that jump into buying a jacket online for something that they've never heard. And that's the thing is, if I even look at myself, is that I've never bought a jacket online before that I've never tried on first before.
I'm the exact same. I'm quite old school in that I prefer to try things on, and maybe I'm in the minority, but I just think, you know, if I'm there, I want to go into the shop and try it on.
I think it's guys just prefer to do that, really. I think, honestly, like women don't mind getting stuff with the chance that it doesn't work or doesn't fit and they return it. We hate returning stuff.
That's
I think we'd rather...
The hassle, the thought of actually doing it gives me anxiety.
We'd rather burn it. So that's where it's just like, right, as soon as we launched the website, it was just like, we need to find a shop again. And it was a case of like, we need to try and get a shop open, but it still has to be the right shop. And that's where there's, you know, and that's where we ended up getting a shop on Byers Road, which we managed to get open the 12 days before Christmas.
How was that? Because I can imagine it was hectic a bit for you.
Yeah, honestly. And this is where it's just like, I don't know, like through COVID, like there wasn't a single order that came to the shop, right, that was right. Everything was wrong. Like and it's like people have just like stopped just doing their job. I don't know, but the thing is, it's just times are so weird, and it was actually everything that's just came was wrong. All the shop fits turned up, they were wrong. And it was just one thing after another. So yeah, actually it was quite funny because it was just like, because I was wearing quite a lot of masks, and my nose was bleeding in the morning sometimes when I was coming out the shower, the top of the nose. And I was sitting there and I took a picture of myself just to show my girlfriend, like, and I looked back at that picture, right, a wee while ago, and I looked at myself, and this was like the week and a half before I was opening the shop. I was just like, you look about dead, mate. Honestly, I was just so stressed out. But we opened up the shop like the first Saturday after the second lockdown. I can't believe I'm actually talking about first lockdown, second lockdowns, and third lockdowns. Yeah. It's mental. And it was amazing. It was honestly so overwhelmingly good to that point where that 12 days, albeit before Christmas, and it's going to be good. The feedback that we got in the shop, and you know, then we started to see all the guys coming in and buying their jackets. People that had obviously been watching you online and obviously watching the story, and it was just, albeit, you know, we got open for 12 days. I'm sitting here in the shop just now. Do you know what I mean? I come in here, work most days. At least I know that I've not made a mistake. Do you know what I mean? It's comforting.
Yeah. You feel that. You feel like, you know, this has got a future here, and people are buying into it now.
Yeah, and that's the thing is, it's just like online for us has been, albeit it's just like jackets are harder to sell online, but the beanies, the scarves, the t-shirts, the sweatshirts, all that stuff, it's all sold really well.
Good.
And it's just such a weird feeling, do you know what I mean, coming in on a Monday and just going like, who are these people? Who are these people buying stuff? Do you know what I mean? And it's kind of, I'm at that stage now with the brand where I know which direction I'm pushing at it. I know where I'm definitely a lot more excited. Do you know what I mean? Where that kind of imposter syndrome kind of thing has definitely started to dissipate slightly as well. So, but it's been,
So something you touched on there was, you know, you were sure about getting the right shop. Was Byers Road familiar to you because you had CCW there? Was that one of the reasons you went down it? I remember. I remember seeing a few negative comments on social media, people saying, you know, like, oh, this is built in the Govan shipyards, you know, and then they're selling it in a more middle class, affluent area. But
I know that, yeah. It's the thing is, like, and this is what I've learned through doing this on social media, is that, do you know what I mean? Social media can be a great place, but it's also a cesspit as well. But people are, like, the thing is I know the area. I know the area well, and the products that I'm selling are not cheap either. So and
you need
it's
to know your audience, don't you?
Yeah. I know the audience around here as well. And I also, with the shop, is I don't just sell Finnieston in the shop, because it's not a large line of clothing. So I've basically just, kind of I brought in some other kind of great brands that I've kind of been able to build up relationships over the years and bring them in. And it kind of complements Finnieston, because as a new brand, I think it's quite good to do that, because, people come in and see, a nice pair of boots and some nice brands sitting around it, and then all of a sudden it starts to make a bit more sense.
Yeah.
So
what will I wear that with? What does it go with?
Yeah. So it's but it's been interesting. Like, obviously it's just like, because Finnieston, it's quite funny, because I touched it on my own social media about, people going, well, what did you call it Finnieston for, and stuff like that, and like, it was but as I said, I called it Finnieston just because it's a nice sounding name. I like the sound of the name, and I've been, as I said on my social medias, I've been personally blamed for that gentrification of an area. Finnieston Clothing, people were trying to haul me over the coals for it, like, and I was literally just like, it's just a name.
It's funny, that, isn't it? It was almost like, is this guy just trying to jump on the back of Finnieston when I'm coming? And some of the comments were, I think, especially, when, like you said earlier, you've put your whole life into this. You've put so many years and so many months and hours into this. Like, you need to remove yourself from that, because you'll never please everyone.
No, I know that, and that's one thing that I've kind of had to learn. And it's been a real, I would say, honestly, like, that is probably one of the hardest learning curves that I probably had with the brand, is that, like, if see, with likes of Facebook and Instagram, see the likes of our followers and people that follow us, who understand what we do, understand the products, and understand what we're talking about, all love us, and we get so much great feedback. The problem is that, with Facebook and Instagram, as soon as you start boosting posts and you start advertising, that's when it goes out into the peripheries of people that don't want to hear from you.
Yeah.
And they have a look at you, and it's very easy for people just to take one look at it and go, what's this? Do you know what I mean? Without actually fully understanding what we're actually all about. And the thing is, it's just like, with the whole shipbuilding industry in Glasgow, we know that everybody doesn't look upon the industry with, fond memories. And every week we get sent pictures from people, and it's all, positive. There's very, very little negative feedback on it.
Yeah,
right. But you're always going to get it, because it is an emotional subject for some people. And that was like one of the reasons, like, since we first started the brand, we've always been like, right, what is it we're doing to try and support that industry as much as possible? So, that's where, I know this won't be going out tonight, but that's why, for example, tonight, which is Friday, the 26th of the 2nd, is that we are now launching our new line of t-shirts, which means not just that new line of t-shirts, all our t-shirts and sweatshirts, 5% of all sales are going to Action and Asbestos, which is an industrial kind of
that's brilliant
charity. And then, obviously we're going to try and look to support the Fairfield Museum as much as possible as well through the year. So it's important for us. And I think, and this is where it's just like, I think eventually people will see the kind of people that we are and what we're meaning to do and the whole thought process behind it. But the thing about Scottish people, and this is one thing that I've learned about travelling, is that we are extremely funny people, right? But we're all naturally a wee bit cynical. Do you know what I mean? And and that's the thing, is it's ingrained in us a wee bit, where we're kind of just like, what's this? What's this? Do you know what I mean?
And Ross, I feel that we've also got imposter syndrome often, and I've spoken about that in a few podcasts, and I think that you're maybe lucky in a sense that you've been brought up in a retail environment, because I think there's so many people out there that, they might have great ideas, but they'll just think, oh, this will never work. You've actually went there and showed that it can work, and it's a lot of the time it's trying to have that bravery to overcome those steps, isn't it?
Yeah. It's so funny. Like, even when we first launched the brand, and I was still working in the shop, so it was so weird. Like, people coming into the shop and trying on my jackets, and I actually people would ask me, like, what's this brand? And I'd be like, oh yeah, I don't know. It's just like some Scottish brand that's just came out. Do you know what I mean? Where I was almost, just like, I was almost just so. It's just it's having that, and this is where it's just like you're going to make mistakes. This is all going to happen. But it was kind of like, as I said, it's been a weird learning curve, and now I am at that stage now where I'm sitting here going, "Oh, this is actually, I think I know what I'm doing." Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And we're doing it in the right way. And the thing is, it's just like you know what I mean? This is where it's just like, you're doing a business. You're not doing it as a charity. You want to make some money out of this, but at the same time, we actually do care about the planet, and fashion's such a big contributor to, pollution and stuff like that. We're always looking into that, and we want to try and make a difference as much as possible. I'd love to get to the stage where I'm making my own jackets in Glasgow. That's something that I would love to do that, because I want to try and invest in more Scottish manufacturing, but the problem is, it's just like, the jackets that I'm doing at the moment, they're made in Portugal, which is a great place to get stuff made, but if I was getting those jackets made in Scotland, they'd cost, what would cost £250, is probably near enough double that, which is just like, it's a really scary price point to be at. So I'd love to
change that, Ross. How does the industry get over that?
And this is where it's just like, it's almost like, because that's just, I think about this in my bed all the time at night, about 2 o'clock in the morning, when the foot's going. I personally because this is where it's just like, for example, our beanies are made in Stewarton, just up the road, which is great. Our scarves are made in Perthshire. All the knitwear we did in our first season was all made in Scotland as well. I think the likes with knitwear is there is that little bit more of an infrastructure for that.
Yeah, that's what Scotland's good at, isn't it? They're known for it worldwide. Yeah,
and there are some amazing there are some great bespoke jacket manufacturers in Scotland. We are, Hancock, for example, in Cumbernauld, which is just an amazing business. It's quite bespoke, but it's, it's very hard for. This is where I think this is what I was talking about beforehand, about conscious consumers, and that, if something costs you, if you're buying a t-shirt for £5, for example, someone along the line is losing out, and it's not you. Do you know what I mean? And I think, and this is where it's just like, I personally would rather get the brand to that point where there's a good demand for the product. There's that demand for the product for that price, and the only reason I've got to that demand is because it's at a decent price point.
Yeah.
And then sitting going, right, okay, how do I bring this back in and do this myself and actually get stuff made in Scotland? Because if I'm getting stuff made myself and I'm doing that, I need to have orders and quantities behind that as well. So, and I do think it's just like, as a brand, see if like the main moans that I get for Finnieston is that, it's expensive. And if anybody messages me directly, I have a guy who was the other week called me a scumbag because I was charging £320 for a donkey jacket. I feel that it's my responsibility to then speak to these people, because if I sit and go, oh well, these people just don't understand, I'm part of the problem. Do you know what I mean? Where I think it's, as a brand, it's how we educate people on where things are made, why things cost that much. And I think and this is where it's just like, as a brand, I don't think you can be any more open and honest enough, and letting.
I think often, people, that's where you're maybe slightly unique, because I think often people would see that feedback and think, oh, fuck it, he doesn't understand. What's the point in replying to him? Just ignore that. Whereas, as you say, is the only way that you will change this culture is go back and explaining, this is the process.
Because that's what I said to the guy. I was just like, right, I appreciate your answer. I appreciate your feedback, sir. Do you know what I mean? As nice as I could be. And I was just like, how much do you think a donkey jacket should cost? And he just went, £80. And I was just like, well, I pay more than that for it.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And I was just like, and that's where it's just like, donkey jackets don't all come from the same place. It's not like, I sit there with a a big sheet of paper with a load of numbers on, and I close my eyes and just go, okay, how much is the donkey jacket going to be this season? It's at that price for that reason. And I think consumers shouldn't be afraid to ask people where stuff are made and why things cost that much. I love it when people actually come in and ask me that, because it's like, you know, I want to talk, because I know I'm doing it right. I've got nothing to hide. Do you know what I mean? Where I would rather somebody, you know, came in and said, listen, can I ask you a question? Why does this cost that much? And I'll be open and honest with people about how much things cost and why I've got to that. And people ask me, are just like, are you going to wholesale Finnieston? And I was just like, well, unfortunately, the way that my brand is at the moment is that I can't really, there's not even a wholesale bounce in that. I'm trying to sell things. I'm trying to get stuff really well made and sell them at a decent price. And that's where it's just like people that understand and know, like, see the jackets and the work that goes into them, they think I'm selling them for cheap. Where it's just, as I said, it's just trying to educate people as much as possible, because, and it's not the consumer's fault, because we've been led down this path where we think a t-shirt's a t-shirt, a jacket's a jacket, and I think it's just about being as open and honest and wanting to talk to people about where things are made and why they cost that much. So
where do you think the future of the brand goes for here? And I think, you know, what's quite interesting as well is earlier on we touched on, you know, that the high streets are struggling, and I think it's almost a statement as well that you went out and got a shop on the high street, because, you know, that's probably what differentiates you in a certain way is, you know, as you says at the very start, it goes back to customer service, and that's where you thrive.
Yeah. The thing is, like, see, Byers Road as well is just like the one thing that we've got here in this is it's got an amazing footfall, you know, and it's after, like, you know, obviously, like, working in the West End, there is this just, it's a massive just melting pot full of different people.
Yep.
Do you know what I mean? Where it's, and that's the thing is that it's like people, if you say, you know, you've seen people say, why are they putting a shop in a middle class area? And it's literally just like, where would you want me to put the shop? Do you know what I mean? Do you want me to put it in the middle of nowhere? Do you know what I mean? Like, it's, everybody's going to have their opinion on things, and that's that. But as I said, like, for the brand, what I would love to get to, this is the dream, right?
Right.
You're the first person.
I'm listening. I'm ready for it.
Right, you ready? I would love to get to that point where I have, like, somewhere in Glasgow, somewhere, there are so many beautiful old buildings that aren't getting used, you know, have somewhere like that where I have a small factory, I've got a Finnieston clothing shop, a nice restaurant, a cafe restaurant, and then at the side of that, I'd love to have almost like a, you know, some little independent shops in there as well. Do you know what I mean? So it's almost like this little kind of utopia of well-made stuff, nice independence. And what you're doing there is you're attracting all that person there that wants to go there for that reason. Because at this moment in time, it's just like there's lots of great little retailers in Glasgow. They're all dotted around, but I'd love to have, like, something like that. That would be the dream, to have. Yeah, make them own jackets. And the thing is, it's literally just like, I don't want to take over the world with the brand. Do you know what I mean? It's not an ambition for me. Do you know what I mean? I'd rather make a difference than make money. Do you know what I mean? It's, although I want to make money, but that's quite a big thing with us as well, where we're just wanting to do it right.
How's your mum and dad been with you? Are they looking on, nodding in delight, or are they a bit like, oh, you could do better here, why don't you try this?
Oh no, I'll never please my mother. It's fine, like, honestly, yeah. She's. I think it was quite hard for them to obviously leave the complete reins of the brand to me. Do you know what I mean? Literally, like 6 months before I started the brand, I was thinking, open up a salad bar. Do you know what I mean? And then all of a sudden, it was just like, right. But I think after a few years, I'm a very creative person. I love creating things. And they're now at that stage now where they're kind of a lot more relaxed about the situation, and they've been they trust me now. So where I'm kind of left my own devices and I'm making my own decisions and stuff like that, and this is where it's just like they've seen what's happening with Finnieston now. And so what they're doing with CCW is actually just trying to develop their own products for their own shops. which are actually for theirs, because, as I said, like, the bricks and mortar's not dead. The high street could be amazing, but it's a case of you have to adapt with the times.
Yeah, totally.
You know, and if you want to sit there and moan about the internet, and moan about this and moan about that, nothing's going to change. You have to adapt. You know, as they say, adapt or die. So, yeah, definitely, kind of, it's all moving in the right direction. And as I said, it's been an interesting last year. So it has, like, every week's just like a different assault course.
It's been great to watch it, and it's been great to see, you know, the followers go up, and, you know, more people wearing it, and people talking about it as well. Where's the furthest you've posted to?
Pardon?
Where's the furthest you've posted to?
We go quite a bit to Australia, actually.
Yeah.
I think that the thing is, as well, is just we do quite a lot of orders to the States.
Brilliant.
We do, like, obviously, because it's a Scottish heritage brand, is that, you know, we do
Sky's the limit with that, isn't it? You know, it's
that's that. Do you know what? And I said this from the beginning. It's just like, I think, you know, because obviously, like, it's like, obviously we see quite a lot of potential. I'd love to have a shop in New York. Do you know, that'd be amazing.
Isn't it? Yeah.
Like, you know, that's an ambition. But, like, it's as I said, it's just, I think, you know, it's just getting your local support. Get that nailed. And now I really do feel that we do have, like, a really, really strong local support now, and everybody's, as I said, I just can't get over, actually, how, I'm not saying it's been good, because it's, you know, times are shite. Do you know what I mean? For a retailer, I'd rather have the clothes at the shop open. Do you know what I mean? But times, that sounds really negative. Times are not shite. Do you know what I mean? There's lots of opportunities out there, and it's just been, we, as a business, we've been forced to maybe do things that we normally wouldn't do. You know, for example, me coming in and going, I need to start speaking to my followers more as a director, you know, which is maybe something I wouldn't have been maybe forced into doing, where I feel like I have to do this, you know, and it's been really, really good for the brand. And we notice it as well, that as soon as we actually start to speak to people through our social media, it's like your activity goes up, because people just want something real.
Yeah, I think that maybe this is unfair to say, Ross, but I feel that from speaking to you today, as much as the journey, the brand's been on a journey, it seems like you've been on a personal journey as well, because you talk about, you know, being back in CCW and saying, oh, that's just a small Scottish brand that's just came up, and now you're like, do you know what, I'm going to put myself out there, and I'm going to tell them the stories, I'm going to show them who I am, and people will buy into that as well.
Yeah, exactly. I think people just want honesty, really, and as I say, as a brand, just being honest and open. And yeah, as I said, like, looking back in that, it was just like, I think I was just terrified of people's opinion.
Aye.
You know, terrified of people's opinion on things.
You don't want that. You don't want to what people will think.
No. But now I'm at that stage now where, you know, if somebody buys a jacket, I'm like, tell me what's wrong with it. I want to know. Like, no, not in a bad way, but it's just like, I love constructive criticism. 2 seconds, there's somebody at the door.
No worries.
Yeah, at that stage where I love constructive criticism. I love, obviously, great comments are nice as well. And it's just, it has been very much I think you're spot on saying there, where it has been this kind of personal journey as well, you know, with me and Finnieston, where we're kind of at that stage now where we're quite happy together.
I love it. Where can people check you out, Ross, if they haven't done so already?
The website is www.finniestonclothing.co.uk. So .com.
I hope that you'll be open in the next few months.
Yeah, so hopefully at the end of April or whenever it's going to be, we'll hopefully have a shop open. And I look forward to getting a beer with you as well.
Absolutely. Thanks very much for your time. I really enjoyed that, Ross, and thanks to everyone who has watched and listened to this episode of the podcast.
Thank you very much, guys. Cheers. It's been great.
Cheers, Ross.